name is Mike Brown, and this is my 321 activity for ACT 633. Let's go ahead and get started. As far as the first part of the activity, we're supposed to identify 3 key characteristics that define our positions as K-12 educators. So this is my 12th year as an 8th grade science teacher over at Penn Manor School District. My classroom is 100% face-to-face. So we have a digital footprint in the form of Google Classroom. I've been doing that for about the last 3 years or so. When I truly started to embrace it, other than just learning the intricacies of it. And it has been great. I'm very happy with the results we're getting. I would say we are on the very cusp of being called, an attempt at a blended classroom. But the technology is there. And as far as that goes, pushing forward with this, seeing where we are in a couple of years, the trend is increasing. And the face-to-face may change or may add a little bit more to the digital portion later in my years as a teacher. I am working on my master's in online ed. Like I said, I'm trying to embrace this trend of the digital classroom. The programs, the applications that are out there in the digital world that are coming out almost on a daily basis, it seems, are phenomenal, trying to meet these kids where they are and bringing the education to a point where they are learning. You can throw a lot of things, as far as attempts to get these kids to learn, but I fully believe there isn't one specific thing that's going to make them learn. But the technology allows us to bring a lot of things into one place, and hopefully we can meet as many of the kids as we can. I do teach in a heterogeneously grouped classroom. And what I mean by that is within a classroom, I will have students that have specific learning disabilities, as well as students that have been identified in their education as being gifted, and then the full gamut in between. So as far as that goes, I think it does establish a very good perspective on my end, having students from all levels in the classroom interacting with each other, but it also does add a bit of difficulty to creating lessons and making sure that you're meeting the needs of all students. So I think that kind of defines where I'm at as far as an educator in the system. As far as the 2 ways to connect to motivation and emotion, and the video with Rita Pearson. I first must say that the video with Rita Pearson was phenomenal. She's an awesome speaker. It was awesome to watch her presentation. I actually showed it to my wife as well. And looking at the target method, by looking at the readings from Dr. Deemer, I think what as far as the target method and what Ms. Pearson stressed, she had a quote in her video that says, "Kids don't learn from people they don't like," which I fully support. I totally get that. And I know you're not going to have every kid that likes you, but it's building that rapport. I think rapport is an essential aspect in the classroom. It's a teacher's best friend, if you will. I think it's almost 90% of the whole teaching process. If you can get the students to buy in to your classroom and you as a person, they're going to be much more willing to learn from you, and therefore get that information and get the actual learning process started. And that, as far as that whole buy-in, making sure the students feel that they are a part of it, they're stakeholders in this. They're the active learner, and I think you need to establish that and make sure that the students understand who they are in the classroom and who you are, and making sure that they can tell that you're not just this robot in front of them, but you're another human that's actively trying to help them learn this material. I also have here, it says, allow the students to make mistakes. Ms. Pearson had given the story about the student that didn't do so great on that quiz with a negative 18, but putting a +2, like that's just such an awesome little twist to make that kid feel like, they're not all bad. Like they still did something, and that's awesome. And I think establishing that, making sure that the kids know they're allowed to make mistakes, that's okay. Because that's where real learning happens. You make a mistake, you learn something from it, you move on, and hopefully you don't make that mistake again. Or if you do, hopefully it's not as bad. As far as a second way, as far as motivation goes, or yeah, like getting the kids motivated in class. I truly believe from the readings from the book that we are using methods that are dated. You have a bunch of teachers that were when they were in school, technology like we have today didn't exist. So we're teaching with methods that were developed to kids that have never known a world without this technology. So we have to find a way to meet them in the middle, and we can't ask them to downgrade. We have to upgrade. I think the book also mentioned that attention is one of the scarcest resources we have today. You're vying for a lot of attention from your kids, and they have a lot more shiny things that they want to look at that is not you. Well, not me. So as far as that goes, making sure you establish that in the classroom that you are an important factor. Your classroom is an important thing. And I think that's where that rapport building comes in and making sure you get those kids to buy into your classroom. I also have there the death of patience and the need for instant gratification. That I'm seeing even from me, I've seen a shift from that. You can't beat a Google search. And I remember I grew up in the age when I did go to the library and research, and you had to wait for the Dewey Decimal System whatnot. Now, I was a kid, but I was still there. And as far as that goes, it's changed. It's changed a lot of things in education. As far as an area of development, where I'd like to try to develop in this class with the idea of the mastery goals versus the performance goals is making sure I meet the students in where they're at, because they have a lot of varied needs. You're asking a lot from a whole bunch of different people that bring a whole different perspective. Each one of them brings a different perspective to the classroom. So for me as a teacher, I want to make sure that I'm looking at the student as a whole. Making sure that I allow them time to learn. I'm not just focused on my content area and why aren't you performing in my class? Making sure that I give them the benefit of the doubt. I also need to make sure that I'm allowing the students to see that learning is a process. Okay, there's an experience here that they're having, whether they're making quick progress or not, they're still experiencing it. So I have to allow them to go through that process. So as far as me as a student in this class, looking at this, the idea of the mastery goals being able to have the educational process occur instead of assigning these performance goals with the traditional, everything's graded, everything's, check this box off. I need to make the conscious effort to remember my previous point as a teacher, which I think is a struggle for a lot of us in the classroom nowadays because of all the pressures that are on us. We have, tests and everything coming at us. So making sure that we allow the students to go through the learning process. I also want to make sure that I can develop a way to meet the varied students that I have in my classroom. As I said, being heterogeneously grouped, we're all over the place, and that's awesome. But at the same time, you get stuck in teaching to the middle. So hopefully through this class, looking at the different goals and how to integrate that stuff into my classroom, I'll be able to move from there. All right. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your comments.